Good evening, everyone. Today is Monday, November 15th. This is a meeting of the Merrimack Village District Board of Commissioners meeting. The public participation will be offered in person and by webinar. You may join the webinar by going to mvdwater.org and downloading the agenda for today's meeting, and that has a web link for the Zoom meeting link on it. Or you can call 646-876-9923 and enter the webinar ID 817-6318-9793. As a courtesy, Merrimack TV is also recording the meeting to be posted on their website at a later date. So I'll call the meeting to order at 5:03, and we can all take an opportunity to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
That's allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good. So we'll do a roll call of all the board members. I guess I'll start it off. I am participating remotely from Conway, South Carolina. Who else do we have there? Anybody else remotely, or is it just me?
Just you.
Okay. And it looks like we got 3 other commissioners. Ken Ayers at MVD office, Wolfon Sean, and John Lyons. All right, great. So we got 3 in the room for a quorum in the room, and 4 of us all together. I believe Paul McLaughlin has been excused for the meeting this evening. So with that said, we could begin with the Finance and Human Resources Review with Michelle Holton.
With the year being through October 31st, we're at over 33% complete through the year, and our current year income is coming in at 1.78 with expenses at 1.28 and leaving us with a net ordinary income of $497,000, which is $154,000 above where we were at the same point last year. Our expenses are higher by $114,000, and our income is higher by almost $67,000. Notably, we've seen that a lot of the impact from last year with COVID is settling out, and the revenues are coming in at a good pace. We did happen to also this month have a miscellaneous income item, which is on page 1 of the income budget versus actual breakdown. Account 40407.8 is a tax credit that we're going to receive as part of the ARPA program. So from April through September, any leave that we provided for people, whether they were getting tests, getting vaccinated, or out for quarantining, et cetera, we were allowed to recoup all the wages plus the employer Social Security and Medicare. So we've just submitted that with the third quarter filing. So we expect to see that likely within a few weeks. And that program did end through September 30th. As I said, otherwise, our revenues are on track, and both above, as far as apportioning for year-to-date of budget, it's something I still want to refine. There were some changes made to the year-to-date budget listings for both income and expense but just focusing on the total budget, we're at almost 40%, 39.86 for our total income against our total year's budget. So we're doing well there. And for expenses, all the same items that we have mentioned before, that are a bit ahead of where we'd like to see them with budget at this point in the year. Admin overtime has settled in, coming in closer to its budgeted amount. Field staff overtime, account 50502. We have had several water main breaks that have contributed to that number being a little higher than in past years at the same time. And the next page, expense budget versus actual. We've also mentioned the 60300 purchase of water, and we have a plan for addressing that going forward, but we are over budget there. Also, next page 70750 R&M watershed. That was our lock project. So that's bringing us against the annual budget at this time. But as I said, that's the main project that we will be doing there. So going into the end of the year, we should still be in good shape, aligned with budget. A couple of things that were associated with us doing the billing for all as of July 1st. The postage 80100, as well as 80150 was up from all the billing, and the fee piece was short.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't want
okay.
to finish up. I just have a question.
Sure, and the fee piece would actually be for the processing of all the payments, as well as we have had a bit more, as we've been catching up AR and also that large billing, a bit more in return checks. But that is something that we do have an offsetting income piece too. You have a question?
I do. Jog my memory, I'm drawing a blank. What is that watershed R&M?
I'm not sure right now off the top of my head either.
I'm glad because it doesn't bring anything at all right now with me.
What is the,
70750. 70750.
well, what we've spent the predominant amount of the money so far on has been replacing all the gate locks in town,
The what?
the gate locks.
Yep.
So protecting the watershed areas.
Oh, like actual locks.
Locks,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay,
Yeah, locksmith has had at least two
okay.
rounds. I believe that there may be a bit more.
And that just wasn't on the budget, or
No, it's,
why are we exceeding that to that extent?
it's the timing. The budget for the year is 5,000. We've only spent 4,054. But the timing of when it would happen.
Okay.
Wasn't certain.
Okay.
I actually,
Okay.
oh, sorry. I just a quick question when it comes to the purchase of water. Does that, is this already showing up as regards to the our agreement with Penachuk? Oh, no,
Not yet.
No, this is prior. So this is
Oh.
at our prior agreement for purchase of water.
okay, thank you.
And also the DVR page. Then on page 4, 81400, public education. That was part of the lead and copper sampling that we did. So we have spent $850 out of the 900 for the year to date, but the entire budget is 2,000. And the bulk of that was the lead and copper sampling. But otherwise, our expense line items are in check. The 9000 capital budget expense, I will spread the 102,000. Other than the items listed there that have already been spent, will include the balance on the CUSI billing upgrade of 30,000. Oh, I'm sorry, that is 14,000 if that's there. And the mini splits came in at about half of what was budgeted. That was originally 14. Esri has spent its entire 10. Then we have a truck purchase for 26, a trailer at 7,000, and we have an allowance for a town CIP project deductible of 15,000. So we'll add those on there, but are there any particular income or expense line items that anyone has any questions on?
Any questions from anybody at the MVD office? No. Good.
And any questions, the back report being the bank balances, any questions on anything there? The large amount in Wells 4 and 5 is still the reserve payments that we received. And we will be moving, reconciling that account and moving some of the monies, will be going back to the operating account that was used for cash flow reasons.
So Turkey Hill Booster has a pretty big jump. 10160.
That account, we were allowing to, the bank does work with us to have zero balance accounts. So when those accounts we're submitting to DES for grant and loans, and often trying to strike the balance of paying as soon as we get our reimbursement. And at some point there was a delay. So we have a transfer from the operating account so that we were able to pay a bill. So in November, you would see that amount, that 10,000 is simply a transfer from the operating account. And I can actually add to this report, if it would be helpful to see any transfers that we have.
It's just unusual to transfer a balance over or to transfer an amount over, then you end up with an even balance because we had a $33.52 balance before. So
I think
must have-
it's that we've had the 10,000 has been there and it was used up to that point. And then when we got the reimbursement, DES had a late reimbursement, so we paid. We had 10, it was a zero, we had 10,000. The invoice was for 9,900 and change. So once we got the money from DES, it brought us back to the 10,000.
Mhm. I'll take your word for it. It's just unusual to have a bank balance that is like down to
So like, and
4 zeros.
you know what would happen in August? It was zero during the month. I put in 10 to pay an invoice, which we did. DES had a very large, or DES, I think it was DES that had the audit, where they actually had to just shut down some operations for a time. So it delayed some of our payments coming back in.
Mhm.
So then we finally got them in October. So it brought us back up to the transferred amount of just the even 10,000.
Okay.
Anything else on financials or bank balances?
Okay. I'm sorry, I do have another one. So between September and October, when you look at the different capital reserves, there's no interest increase on those?
I'm sorry, I meant to mention that. We've had an issue with receiving our statements late.
Okay.
So I am working with them to resolve that. They had 1 month that things literally got in about 5 weeks out. They were able to eventually email it to us in the interim. So I've been talking with them actually this week to get that straightened out.
Okay, but we book our interest per account, right? We don't draw all the interest from the different accounts into some kind of posting.
The interest does post to each individual capital
Account,
account,
right,
yes,
okay.
along with the fee associated fees.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, good. Any other questions? If not, we can move on to, I guess, the regular session. Is that where we're going next, I think?
Cybersecurity policy.
Right. And that's, is that with you, Michelle, as well?
Yes, yes, it is.
All right.
And Amanda, I can send you all the detail I'm gonna go over right now. I can just go ahead and send it to you in the morning, just so you'll have it verbatim.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Both the IT policy and the cybersecurity disaster recovery plan were created for need to protect the district's assets from the ever increasing cyber attacks that are happening in the world today. And we developed it initially using other municipalities' policies for a starting reference point. They were provided by our fellow finance officers from the New Hampshire Government Finance Officers Association. We also got input from our IT service provider, as well as our auditors gave the final policies a review. And our new IT managed service company, Block 5, they're going to be upgrading, they're actually building our new servers right now. So they're going to be doing that upgrade, as well as really taking over a lot of our tracking and monitoring in this area. So they're going to just be implementing that all into the new updated IT setup. And as far as IT policy, I'll just read you the overall purpose: to establish the appropriate use and protection of Merrimack Village District's information assets and technology. The policy is intended to ensure that MVD's information assets and technology are secure from unauthorized access, misuse, or destruction, and define the appropriate actions to be taken if there is a security breach. And that's where the cybersecurity plan would keep in, and it would be would kick in. It would be the process to recover the IT systems, applications, and data from any type of disaster that causes a major service and or work outage. So we just kind of went through how we handle everything with IT. I just used, also we used some reference from the American Waterworks Association, some standards there as part of the American Waterworks Infrastructure Act of 2018. So we also provided these policies to them. They were due by the end of, one in June, one by the end of the year. And have we received any input, feedback on that?
No, not that I'm aware of. It was just, it's been submitted and it was, I guess no news is good news.
Okay. So does anyone have any questions?
Do we use two-factor authentication?
We do not, but in some instances we do, because the online websites that we work with more and more and more are requiring it, particularly those that will, for some things like the bank, for our 457, a lot of things that are financial sensitive based, they have moved up to that, and they do different ways. Some we have the tokens, we have like a physical token or a physical UBS drive that acts as the secondary piece. Some, their applications we download, some do the email to us to provide codes. So we're seeing more and more of those, and we're definitely seeing things change their passwords much more regularly. And we are going to be going to a much longer and more complex password and or passcode, because we really haven't had even a set system that we all have used. So we're going to try and make that more formalized and also more uniform and stronger. And with Block 5, they're running through just our entire policies, constantly asking us about practices. We have a monthly meeting to kind of update how we're doing on the upgrade, as well as any questions that we have. And anytime we get anything suspicious, even this week, I received 2 phishing emails, that I just blocked, but then sent on to them just so that they see, is there any pattern or any relation to any bigger issue happening that they're aware of that ties into what's going on with us. And these just happen to be very random, very fundamental, and easy to spot, but we send it out to them anyways.
I think that's one of the things I would suggest you talk to Block 5 about, is getting two-factor authentication when you sign into your computer. Because it's really hard to replicate. Training on the phishing emails, VPN connections for any remote access. And there was one other that was kind of topical. Oh, this doing Windows updates. Like that's
big thing right now, from what I'm hearing. Things are very aggressive, like hackers are not kids in their basement anymore. They are companies
Mhm.
in foreign soil. And so those are some things I would suggest that you might bring them in on.
No, most definitely. And the two-factor isn't one that at this time earlier in the year when we had built this policy that we were planning to move to at this point. But I think there are a lot of upgrades that we're doing here, and I think we'll constantly be doing them. And with Block 5, part of the reason we went with them because they are so much stronger. They've put on tracking to our system so that they can ensure the updates are happening and keeping us current with everything that's out there to help us avoid these. But we will definitely talk with them about the two-factor. And I'll give you updates as we go along.
Thank
Does
you.
anyone have, you're welcome. Anyone have any questions? Dawn?
Great.
Thanks,
Well,
Michelle.
thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll move along. Looks like the next item on the agenda is here projects updates from Underwood engineers on well 7 and 8 and on well 2. So we got Peter Pitsis from Underwood. How you doing, Peter?
How you doing? Good.
Good. What do you
Okay,
have?
What do we have? Okay, so actually, 7, 8, I don't know if everybody heard that the vessel got delivered and got set last week.
Good.
So that is in place now. They have placed the trusses on the roof. They placed the gable end on the roof. They have not sheathed the roof yet. They lowered in some staging down into the room, that because they need to build up staging around the vessels, do all the ceiling work. So that got lowered in, and then they're going to be, then the carpenters can be coming in to, sheathe and put the asphalt shingles on a roof, close up the soffits and stuff like that. The siding has already been installed all the way up to, one course of vinyl siding below the soffits. So that should, go very easily. So you should be able to wrap up the outside of the building fairly quickly. So his overall schedule, so he has 2 months where he figures he needs to do setting up the staging, doing all the ceiling work, and then tearing down all that staging. So if you can imagine that room right now, I don't know if you've been out there to see it when it had one vessel in there, the pipe rack, the stair platform that's up against the existing building, and then the back stairwell. There's a lot of things to work around to build staging around that to get up and do all that ceiling work. So that's going to take a little while to get done. And then when you're figuring in Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's all in that. So that's where he's thinking that it's going to be 2 months to do that work. Then once that's out of the way, another month to do the remaining work inside, and then a month of startup. So they should be coming online the end of March. So that's the schedule there. And then they have, they'll have some finish. So right now they do not have all the loam and areas seeded right around the immediate area of the building. They do have some other areas that are done, like around the infiltration basin. So that he needed to wait till the carpenters got off of that, with all their work doing with the roof and the extra siding and all that kind of stuff. So that will be done, probably in the April timeframe next year. But that'll be after the facility's up and running. But most of the outside work has been done. So that's a quick summary there. Does anybody have any questions?
Is that still the same schedule that we had discussed at our last meeting,
Yeah,
basically?
it was, yeah.
Okay, good.
Being online by the end of March, and that is contractually, that is the end of their contract too, at the end of March.
All right, good. And does Infrastructure Communication Corp, Construction Corp actually know that it's critical to get this up and running to defray the purchase of Pennachuck water that we're buying in the interim?
Yep.
All right, good. They're aware of
Yes,
that.
yep.
then. Good.
And he is very anxious to to complete this project and get out. You know, he's for
Right.
himself, he's this has cost him a lot of money to have this delay and all that. So he is in, he wants to get out of there as quick as he can too. So it's to his benefit. So
So we're all on the same side of that, basically.
exactly. Yeah.
So I had talked to Ron a little bit about this a couple weeks ago, but now that wells 7 and 8 are basically off,
Yep.
Is there any other work that's being done to the existing green sand vessels that we're taking advantage of the downtime on any of that work?
Yeah, I'm not sure the maintenance that needs to be done on that, where they are in their sequence of anything. So I'm not sure. So Ron would have a better idea on that and the other workers and stuff. So
All right, maybe he can give us an update on the superintendent's report or something if we want to just wait for that, that's fine by me.
yeah, because that would definitely the time, if you're going to do any maintenance, this is the time to do that,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly.
And we are done. I don't know where we are at it, but I mean, the plan was to do the drawdown screens need to be replaced. So that was something that they would be working on, as well as if we need to do any kind of a regen for the green sand. That was going to take place this time too. So
Yeah.
they're going through the plant and doing the maintenance they can do and in this downtime. So.
All right, good. I wasn't sure if Underwood had to be involved in that, or it sounds like we might have it all under our own staff then. So,
yeah, I think that was being done by in-house staff.
okay.
It is. Yep.
All right, good. I just wanted to make sure the other commissioners were aware of that, because I know I spoke to Ron about that a couple weeks ago. So makes sense to take advantage of the downtime over there, and I'm glad we are.
Definitely, yeah.
Any other questions on the well 7 and 8 treatment plant? If not, then you can move on to well 2 update. Is that the next thing we're going to talk about?
Yep, the well 2 update. So we added in well number 9 work officially into the contract. So change orders been signed on that. We'll just the contractor signed it, I signed it, and then Ron will sign it at our meeting on Wednesday of this week. So that will be totally executed, and we'll be moving ahead with that. So they are they based on that notification, they starting to I assume they're pulling together. We'll talk about this at Wednesday's meeting about pulling in some of the critical shop drawings for that, i.e. the VFD and the well pumps and stuff. So,
Okay.
and that gives them a little bit more time to also coordinate, with whoever they're going to be using for directional drilling subcontractor and all that kind of stuff to do that work. So that's the at least the well 9 part. Just to give you a quick summary of where we stand right now, at the site, I think I mentioned before, the site was cleared, and they're working on the building itself. They still have a few more trees down. They still have a lot of their logs that are still on site, and I'm surprised they haven't taken them out, but they said that they want to concentrate on the building and not worried about the logs. So if you do go out there, the logs kind of make it look a little bit messier out there. But they are moving ahead with the building itself. They have all of the foundation walls poured. They did all the under slab piping in the GAC room, and they have poured the slab for the GAC room. They set up all their staging, and actually today they have started the masonry work on the GAC walls. That is going to take It all depends on what they're gonna be doing with their grout, if they're gonna be mixing it on, not the grout, yeah, the grout core, and when they're filling the core holes up. I don't know if they're gonna be, mixing that on site. They do have the equipment there, but they were also talking about possibly getting that from a ready mix company, just speed up the process. So I'm not sure exactly what they're gonna do. They did not do that today. Excuse me, sorry about that. But they'll be moving ahead. So right now, with the number of courses they have about 9 days worth of work to finish that GAC room wall. So that will be done. If you count today and all of next week, that's 8 days. I don't know if they're gonna try to get the grout from that's the benefit. If you can get the grout from a ready mix plant, then you could potentially, speed that up and have all those walls done by Thanksgiving. So we'll see what they do. But so then on the lower portion of the building, which is the chem feed areas, the office and that mechanical room, electrical room, they have the foundation walls completed for that, the exterior walls. There are some interior walls, foundation walls that they have to do because some of the block walls actually go up to the ceiling, up to the roof line. So they need a little bit more support than just a thickened slab. So they're working on those right now. The goal on those is to have, let me just look at his schedule again, to have all the slab on grades completed, because there also are different elevations. So there's some, the sunken, depressed chem feed areas and stuff, but for all the slabs, that should be completed by the middle of December 14th. The vessels are still due to be shipped on December 15th, and arrival sometime around Christmas. So that's still the plan right now. I assume, based on what we had with Evoqua before, they kind of keep telling you that, and then maybe a couple weeks before they give you an update. So I think at our next meeting, we'll have a pretty good idea of when those vessels will be shipped, but they're still scheduled to be shipped December 15th. So, and then after they finish up the slab on grade on that lower area, then they'll obviously work on the blocks there. So then be moving ahead. So they are estimating that they will be substantially complete August 26th, or the end of August next year. They plan on, you just double check that date. Yeah, August 26th. So that's what they're shooting for right now.
So I know in the past we were talking about the end of June. Is that
that's what they were, that's what they were initially, indicating. I think some of that might have been more of like when they were finishing, but before the testing of the GAC and all that kind of stuff. So I'm looking at it right now, and they actually have a line item. I'd have to go back and look at that old schedule to see if we are looking at a wrong line item, but their substantial completion date is August 26th. And contractually, they have until sometime in September to complete that. So they're shooting for something a little bit before their contractual date.
okay? Any other questions for?
That's about it for there. They're moving along a little close to schedule, tiny bit behind what they were originally estimating, or what they were estimating last month, but they're pretty close to what they were looking to do.
Wolf?
A quick question, and that's maybe rather for Ron. Last time with 4 and 5, didn't we actually feed water into the system prior to substantial completion?
Yes.
We did, right?
Yeah.
Quite a bit, right? Like
Yeah, that's right.
3-4 weeks, right?
I believe so. So yeah, I'm thinking. I hate to say it.
Right. You already answered my question. Okay.
Yes, I'm hoping earlier, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that could have an impact on our summer demand, right? When we're gonna be looking to have, I believe, wells 7 and 8 coming back online if everything goes well at the end of March. But we're still gonna need a little more capacity, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe that's not the case.
Yeah, so they say on their schedule that it says startup and test GAC equipment, and they have that ending July 29th. And then they have functional acceptance testing of the filtration and SCADA system. So I'm not, it certainly could be a little bit before. It all depends on how all that stuff lines up. But from when they said that they're going to end, testing of the GAC, they have another 4 weeks until they say substantial completion. And, based on what Penta did with, 4 and 5, you really can't just leave water in, in those vessels. So they have to be running those. And I think they would probably want to, get that operational as soon as possible. So I think there's certainly a chance to be before that August 26th, but we'll have to wait and see it and talk to them about, how they plan on getting everything else started up. So.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Any questions for Peter from anybody? If not, I guess we can move on. Oh, the one last question I had was, I was just curious if that contractor for wells, the treatment plant wells 2 and 9, is also aware that, we're kind of under the gun trying to get in front of this water purchase from Pennachuck. And if not, if that can be communicated to them at the next meeting with them.
Yeah, that contractor is Kinsman, and we will bring that up at Wednesday's meeting.
And I mentioned also that I thought we were being proactive at the last meeting, getting well 9 approved for moving forward on the installation of everything with well 9, in an effort to try to get that timeline expedited to some extent. And
yeah, I think that was I think the treatment plant was probably running along that, I don't think the treatment plant really changed, in terms of schedule, but getting well 9 on, certainly, if we told them December 31st that we, wanted to do that, and then went through the change order process, then it might have been delayed, that well 9 might come on, say, after the August 28th, because of trying to order all the components. I think now, I think you get a little bit more assurance that, once the plant comes online, you'll have 2 and 9 instead of just 2 coming online.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. If you could just, mention those 2 things to them, I think just have them understand that, that was the goal of our expediting that ahead of time, and the predicament that we're in with buying Pennachuck water would help it to ease that if we can get that on. And who knows, I don't know if we have another wet spring, then we're not going to have a high demand. But if we start getting into the, July, August dry period, then I don't know if we're going to be struggling to meet demand without having well 2 and 9 functional.
Correct.
So,
yeah.
Okay.
We will leave that. Yep. All right, thank you.
All right. Great.
You guys are doing great on schedule today.
Yeah, I know.
Jinxed us.
They want me to come back.
Maybe it's because Jamie's not on.
Okay, we'll blame it on him. He's not here. All right, thanks.
All right, great. So if everybody's good with Peter, we'll move on to item number 3. And that's with Keith Pratt of Underwood Engineers. We're gonna be talking about the capital improvement plan.
Yeah, hi
Right.
guys, how are you?
Great.
Yeah, Ron and I chatted a little bit about it. Ron, do you want me to jump in, or did you want to start with anything?
No, go, jump right in.
Yeah, so Ron took a stab at the first one and sent capital plan out for me to take a look at it. I didn't get a chance to look at it until this morning, but we went through it. I think you have a copy of it, and there's a few things we're going to adjust and tweak on it. But the biggest items that we're going to add to it, well, that's not on here, is the artificial recharge potential project, the cost of service study as it relates to the potential connection with Pennachuck, and we're going to modify the new well site install, which right now is about $1.5 million. That was kind of targeting Mitchell Woods or maybe even Wilson Hill Road, but we, in the supply update you had us do a few months ago, those numbers went up, so that those dollars will adjust slightly.
Yeah, Keith, on that, I don't know if you were there or not, but when we spoke about this, I think at the last meeting briefly with Jamie, he mentioned that the existing, I guess there's an 8-inch well that's out there right now. And there may be an opportunity perhaps to use that 8-inch well instead of having to develop a whole new larger, 12 or larger inch diameter gravel pack well. So I don't know if you had an opportunity to speak to him about that. If not, maybe you want to talk to him, but I don't know what kind of pumping capacity, if there's a submersible pump that would fit in an 8-inch well that would give us the pumping capacity we need or not. But that's something I think we should look into, because if we can save that whole step on having to install a larger sand and gravel well, and I don't know if that makes sense to do or not, but we did speak about that at the last meeting. So I just wanted to make you aware, maybe follow up on that with Jamie.
Yeah, I think I heard a little bit about it, and the way we've been doing it historically with you, and I think it's a good approach, is we've done the study, we've made certain assumptions. I mean, one of the things we've talked about is which particular parcel we're going to be on, and we were trying to be generic in the study just to make sure, because a lot of it would require land acquisition if you depending on where you land. But what we often recommend you do is, once we start realizing this project's real, we've given you the order of magnitude numbers, we always suggest a preliminary phase work, and we did a little bit of that with artificial recharge and the Wilson Hill, but I think Wilson Hill is going to be one of those that's going to develop a little bit more information is going to be given with time, so that might need to be updated, and then that would be when we could revise and update costs. But the only cost we really have right now are what the study says, but we recognize they always get refined. And if we can find ways to reduce them, we usually do it through that phase just before you go to a town or district meeting vote, for example.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, no, we're on the same page on that, and I think we'd want to look at ways to reduce it. But the report had Wilson Hill in there for 2.8 million and Mitchell Woods for 2.4. And Wilson Hill's just farther out, which is partly why but Wilson Hill had potential land acquisition too.
Right. So the 2.4 was for Mitchell Woods, you said?
Yep.
And we've got 1.5 million on the CIP plan.
Yeah. So Ron and I were going to probably just keep it listed as new well site install, and we could put Mitchell and or Wilson, because at this point we don't see both of them happening. So we'd be talking about, one or the other at some point.
Okay.
So we might carry in the CIP for planning purposes, just carry maybe the higher of the two. One's 2.4, one's 2.8. And then it would be refined once the final decision and final preliminary design work is done.
So is that going to be updated on the CIP plan or not?
Yeah, it will.
All right. Okay. So that's one of the changes you're talking about. Then.
Yeah. And a couple of the projects that Ron highlighted as orange, they'll come down because they're done. 4 or 5 is done, obviously. Turkey Hill Booster Station is done.
Okay.
I
Anybody
have,
have questions on this?
Yeah, so the rate update, we have none planned for 2022, but given all the changes in the system that are happening next year, and then the Pennachuck water purchase and so on, and how it may deplete some of the capital reserve, should we plan for another, whatever, $3,000-4,000 slight refresh of the rate study like we've done in 2021?
Yeah, Ron and I chatted about that, and we hadn't talked about just doing a little dust off for $3,000. That can easily be done, I think. This is showing right now that the bigger update would be for fiscal 2023, but that starts, technically you could start that in July of 2022, which is not much more than 7 months away, right? So we kind of thought that just might be good enough at that point.
I just don't want to get caught off guard late next year and realizing we're running out of funds here.
No, I mean, I was planning on budgeting for that.
Okay. I had another one and I forgot. What was it? The SCADA.
Yeah, that's,
The SCADA upgrade.
Yeah, no, Dave Erickson mentioned something next last
So
meeting.
we are looking into that right now.
That was
The interconnect, right?
No. For the a SCADA hookup for the interconnect right now. So
Right.
It's a little less time consuming. We can monitor it through the SCADA. So we actually have, and I did talk to Brian today about that as well. Kind of get all kind of the pieces together and give A&D a call, and let's start, see what we can do to move forward with that in the short term. We are part of the well 2 construction. When that is done with, we're going to do a kind of a look at all of our radios. So it's going to, and we'll have an upgrade at that point. Part of the well 2 construction, and that should include the Belmont booster as well as the interconnect as well.
yeah, right now, and Peter maybe can give more detail on it. Belmont was the only one that wasn't incorporated in the well 2 work, Ron, but the interconnect was. And so the well 2 does have some kind of a major upgrade, and if Peter's still listening, he can tell us. I think it included the new radios.
Yeah,
Some more. Yeah.
it did include, let me just take a quick peek, and I don't think it included the Belmont, but I can tell in a second.
That one's not as critical, but it's, if it goes out, it's not like we're not still supplying water to Belmont Hill, it just boosts.
Mhm.
So we typically.
Yeah,
get-
that is correct. It does include the Route 101 Pennachuck connection, but does not include the Belmont station. And we could add that in there if you wanted to do that. But it does
Yeah,
not.
I think it'd be nice to have it there if we can do it.
And I have 2 more items. We have, and this is partially pending some of the engineering orders that you guys have pending, to work on or to complete. Remote chlorination. We talked about, is there a way for us, because right now we have the problem that the gradient, right, goes all throughout, from the tanks or from the treatment plants. We have to basically bump up the chlorination level to make sure we have a certain level all the way out in the distribution system.
Right.
And that leads to some people in the vicinity of the tanks, in the pumps and plants, to have an undesirably high level of chlorination, right? We had said that there might be options to either change the technology altogether, right? For something that doesn't require that gradient in the first place, or to maybe think about remote chlorination stations, right, that are further out in the system. I don't know if it's something we want to put on the radar for the future.
Well, it was addressed in the corrosion control study, and to some degree in the water supply master plan. We owe you, and I think Dawn, and when Tom checked with you, we still wanted to have that work session that was dealing with that exactly. So
Right.
I still think that's on the table. We have done some work on that, made some recommendations, and we're ready to sit down with you when, we're all ready to spend an hour or two just to talk specifically about water quality.
Well, and you actually just mentioned the other one, corrosion, right? I mean, we still have some people in town that are fighting with corrosion or that are connected to lines that clearly have corrosive issues. So I don't see any of those two aspects covering the CIP at all. And I realize we may not have any indication what to put on here, but do we need to talk about that and add something?
I think
We could, we can add it as a placeholder for sure. I mean, right now we're recommending staying the course, but we need to have that work session to talk to you guys about where we landed initially. And so we'll add a placeholder for corrosion control and chemical feed.
Okay.
And maybe just have it as a question mark, but at least it stays on the radar then, to your point.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Any other
And
questions?
Wolf, on that part with your, when you're talking about, higher dosage of chlorine. So right now, when you're having plants shut off, you're under a different scenario than you will be, say, August, September next year, when the well 2 plant comes online. Then you'll have, 3 different plants coming online, feeding from, 3 different locations. So it might change your scenario a little bit out in your system. I'm not saying it's eliminate it, but like right now, I think you have a little bit of a different scenario.
Yeah, but that's not different than what it was a year ago, right? So half a year ago. So, and these complaints from people in town are as recent as half a year ago, like specifically in summertime, right? So.
And we do notice a drop off a little bit in the high service as well. But I think that would even, if Mitchell Woods was to come online, that would even make that a little bit better as well.
Yeah, because decentralized, but only part of the year because we're not using it year round.
That is true.
So, and actually that leads me to another question. With us now pulling Pennachuck water from one location only, are we addressing the chlorination? Because now our spread is completely different, right?
Yes.
Our reach.
Yes, we are monitoring. And if we have to, we'll do some flushing, or I don't know if we set up a injection point at maybe the Turkey Hill booster, or if we can, but yeah, we'll have to. If it gets to a point where it gets real low, we may need to address it, but I think we're doing okay. We are monitoring it. We actually dropped, so we actually shut Pennachuck interconnect off at one point, just so we could lower the Turkey Hill tank a little bit and to replenish it with some fresher, I won't say fresher water. Just to turn it over a little bit. It wasn't, it's not a good term. To actually get a little more turnover in the tank.
Okay.
Because we were finding it was only dropping about 5 feet, so we wanted to get a little bit more. But we do have a mixer in the tank, so things are more consistent in the tank.
Okay.
Yeah, on that subject, I was just curious about Keith and Peter, what your thought might be about remote chlorine injection. Is there even room, the way the pump stations are now at the Turkey Hill booster and also at the interconnect booster, to do any chlorine injection in there? We'd have to put some kind of other building up or something to do that.
It wouldn't be per code. I mean, if what Ron's talking is kind of an interim thing to get you through until the rest of the plants are online, but no, to do it long term, there'd be a little bit more work involved.
Yeah, okay. All right, because those are probably good places that we might want to consider, particularly Turkey Hill, because that all the water going to the the high pressure zone goes through that pump station basically. So, and if I think what Ron just said, the high pressure zone is where we see a little bit of a drop off in the chlorine, maybe that's the place to boost it. But that's down the road. It's just a thought that I had. I just wanted to ask you guys, but yeah, I think you should put it on the CIP for a placeholder would be a good idea. All right, I was wondering, I know you have on here the two storage tanks with the time frame to be determined on the where is it? The tank coating and cleaning. Hutchinson Road tank was just done, what, like 4 years ago? 3.5?
We
4?
just looked at that date too, and I'm trying to, I think it was 18, yeah.
Those seems 3 years ago.
Was it 3?
I think it was the first year that you and I were on the board.
That's what I remember too, yeah. Is there anything we need to do on the Turkey Hill tank, or is that concrete? Does that have a lining on the inside of it? I'm not
It
even
does
sure.
not. We had just had that inspected when we put the mixer in. That went in along with the Turkey Hill booster. That was part of that project. So that's went in fairly recent. It was inspected. It was cleaned. It was cleaned and inspected at that point. So I was just looking at that myself. I do know Parker tank is going to need some paint, but I was going to put in this year for a inspection on that, and then probably for a next year plan on a blast and recoat.
Is that on internal and external? Inside, outside the
I
tank?
guess we'll have to see what I'm thinking the inside's probably okay, because that doesn't typically run in the winter time, so there really shouldn't be any kind of scouring in there, but I don't know on that. I'd have to.
Oh, yeah, we had made some recommendations, Ron. I think we'll have to go back and look at what those were, because I don't remember either, but I think it was addressed.
Did you just
We'll
say?
double check.
Did you just say Parker doesn't run usually in the wintertime?
It doesn't, no.
When has Parker run at all?
So the last time we ran that, well, during the blast and recoat of Hutchinson, I want to say we had it on last year when we were doing some work on the booster. We needed to shut that down. We filled Parker and were able to shut that line down, do the work we needed to do. And it supplied both the northwestern part and then I'm going to call it the southern part of the high service. We were able to isolate in one tank, service one area, and the other one did the other during the shutdown. So we've had them. It's been more frequently over the last few years that we've actually had that tank in service. But
Makes you wonder if that wouldn't be a point also to use for remote injection.
I was thinking of that as well.
Yeah. But then we would have to run it all the time.
Maybe not. I don't know. We'd have to look at that because we do have a water line that does run up to the. I believe it's shut off in the parking lot. We just have to inject past that, but
You got 2 directional flow in that line going in and out of the tank too, right? So I don't know if that would be a problem.
Yeah, actually, what's interesting on that is we're running a pilot, one of the first ones in the state where we're putting in chemical feed at a tank site. Maine's done it, I think Bangor, but we're not aware of anywhere else in New Hampshire it's happening. But you just set up the piping to be independent of the unidirectional flow. So you're monitoring the tank itself for water quality, and you're injecting separately with a mixer. So you don't worry about the unidirectional flow. But it's interesting because we're seeing some good results. We're doing it in dairy, but we do see applications for it everywhere in a lot of locations. So it's a good point. Those sites can be good when you're using it.
Right.
Well,
It's hard to do if you weren't using it, because then you do have, a little bit less, more variations in flow. But anyway, it's an option.
maybe we should we add something, Keith, to look at the hydraulics of that for that tank? Because they do not drain at the same rate. That's why it's been shut. We use it when we can, but it doesn't get used all the time because it does not. They flip flop. So Hutchinson will go drain first when it stops, and it kind of levels off, and then they fill at different rates as well.
I think we should, one item that's on the CIP that's been budgeted, but I don't think the trigger's ever been pulled on it, is the hydraulic model update. I think it is time, we've been talking about it for a while, that Merrimack's hydraulic model gets updated better to tie in and be more aligned with your GIS systems. And that could be done in parallel. It could be another way to check the hydraulics there, as you say. So yeah, I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know if we activate that tank, if we can use Parker tank in concert with Hutchinson tank in the high pressure zone. Would that give us a little bit more storage, to get through any peak day demands in the system without having the water become too stagnant, obviously.
Which is, I think, the reason you initially took it offline was water quality issues, back
Right.
a while ago.
Right.
That's my understanding as well.
Yeah, but wouldn't that be a matter of adding flow regulation on either tank and just control which one is getting drained up to which point?
Yes, that's what I'm.
That's one aspect, but Dawn mentioned it too. I think you have some peak hour issues and peak day issues, but you really do have, with that tank online, you do have more storage than you need. It's, your issue is more supply, right? That's why we've been having troubles, but we can look at that, and it should be, the tank for sure should be kept up. That's why we put it on the CIP and in the master plan. But I think other than the peak times, it's not a tank you really need. It's more storage than you need. But the times that you've needed it, it was there for you, because you have at times needed it. So it's a good tank to keep up.
Yeah, it's definitely great to have as a backup, which kind of makes me just wonder on the Turkey Hill tank, what's the design life on that tank? Like, what's the next thing that would need to happen at that tank for maintenance? Or if there was a inspection that said that we needed to do something, is there a recoating process on the inside, or I don't know.
They don't coat them. We're doing one in Dover right now. It's a 4 million gallon net gun tank, very similar to the Turkey Hill tank, probably the same vintage, might be a little older. But we're taking it offline. They're getting in and just checking cracks and sealing up things. It's not like an overcoat or a complete coating system. It's a lot of it has to do with some aesthetics and just sealing up any visible hairline cracks. I mean, there's not a lot you have to do to those tanks. So you just want to protect the rebar that's in there, and that's kind of what we're doing over there. The biggest cost for them was taking it offline, and so they actually have to build another tank before they could take it offline. I mean, you have some other ways that we might be able to do it, but there's not a lot. But there will be times we got them in there, and it was I'd say that tank project over there in Dover was probably $500,000 in terms of renovations, but it was a 40-50-year-old tank.
So we did, when we had the mixer installed, Don, part of that work, we actually had some roof work done, some exterior roof work done as well. So they patched up the coating. Hatch work, I think a new hatch, I want to say new hatch was installed. So we did some other work, maintenance to that tank as well.
All right, that's good. Yeah, because that's the other question you kind of mentioned it, Keith, about, if that tank needed to be taken out of service temporarily for maintenance, how would the system function? Would there need to be another temporary tank installed, or could we use the two tanks in the high pressure zone, Parker and Hutchinson, to kind of backfeed the low pressure zone if we needed to? I'm not really sure how that would work. And the only reason I'm asking this is, do we need to think about that and get something on this CIP plan if we need to do something, significant like that? I'm not sure how that would work out. I don't know if you have an answer, but something we should think about.
No, I don't have a direct answer, but I do know that between the previous master plan and we did do, like Ron said, some initial inspections on these tanks. I'm going to go back with Ron and look at what we had recommended before to make sure at least we're doing those things. And then maybe just to that point, we can put tank work as another placeholder. But before we put anything too aggressive there, I want to make sure we're staying true to some of the original work and inspection and recommendations that were done. So we'll do that. I'll make a point to look back at those things.
Okay. Any other questions on the CIP, or is there anything else you wanted to discuss, Keith?
No, I think we're still a little early on this, so we got a little bit more work to do. And then I know Ron's going to get in front of the planning board at some point to present it when you guys have accepted it.
Right.
On the bottom, Keith, is this, are these the sources of the funds? It says projects, but it's got bond, SRF, drinking water, groundwater, trust fund, loans.
Those were put in by Michelle.
As the first line?
So we kept an area that we could do completed projects, so we could kind of show that we've been following the CIP. And then we did a section for funding. So that covered the wells 4 and 5 projects.
Yeah, the attempt was to try to at least target the funding source for these things as we move along. This obviously has not been finished, updated for this capital plan, but that was the intent here.
Yeah, so I guess that's why I bring it up now. I'd be interested to see those broken out and to see what's grants and what's debt.
And that's a good point. We probably should update the 7 and 8 funding source on this as well.
Yeah. We'll clean that up too on the next round.
Yeah, I actually do see now there's future storage tank for $2 million as far as like greater than 20 years out. So I didn't see that before I was asking these questions. But that kind of implies we're looking at 20 years or more out. So I just wanted to make sure that this wasn't carried over from 10 years ago. And we're still looking at 20 years ahead from 10 years ago.
Where'd you see that?
It's
Don?
right under where it says future projects greater than 20 years at the bottom of the sheet, sort of on the middle right side.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yep, right, that's right.
And I'm thinking $2 million might not be the current price. I'm not sure if that's what size tank or where that's, if that's a replacement for the 4 million gallon tank or the 750,000 gallon tank. I don't know really what that is for.
Well, that came from, like I said, I'm sure one of our planning studies, so I'll double check that to see if those align.
Right. I just want to make sure we're not missing a big multi-million-dollar item that we should be planning for. That's all. So if you can look into that.
Yeah, I'm looking a little bit right now, but it'll probably take me a little more time to find it. So we'll have to get back to you on it.
Right.
I did want to mention as well, and I'm sure the board knows it, but Parker Tank, actually it does generate revenue for us as well. It does house 3 or 4 cell towers on it. So,
I mean, I would think it'd be good if we ever did go forward with Mitchell Woods too, right? It's not far from there, right?
Right.
Any other questions on this for Underwood? I think that was the last item you guys were on the agenda for. Is that right?
That's all I saw. What's the timing on Ron getting an updated CIP finalized? What's the schedule we're working against?
I'd like to get it to the planning board, but now that, I guess, for budget season, we start planning our budget and present to the board, give them the whole packet, so.
Okay.
Shouldn't the process be at least also the other way around, that we get the projections from the planning board about, this whole concept of presenting to the planning board, to me, is almost a little bit backwards, because we need to adjust to what the town is growing into.
Good point.
right? I mean, we have no right to decline any body water, right? So this whole idea of presenting to the planning board, our plan, to me is backwards. It can always only be reactive to what the planning board does. So it is much more important to me that we know what the town's planning.
Typically, the planning board just looks at our projects and actually they, what we feel is for the ratings, how necessary is it and all that. That's how they rate it. So they're basically looking for us. Part of that presentation, we're gonna, we'll say, oh, this is really needed, this isn't, and then they rate it that way.
Which I don't understand at all because they have no authority whatsoever over our budget, nor what the ratepayer approves or not. So, I mean, frankly, I think it's, I don't want to be disrespectful to the planning board, but
No.
I don't see at all
It's like how can we adjust to the future needs
That's right.
of the town without knowing first, so we
Right.
can adjust our,
I agree, yeah.
And it's not about
Our
pleasing,
adjustments take so long
right, exactly,
that, we kind of have to do what we think we can do
right.
and tell the planning board, this is what we think we can do. I would look at it that way, because it's not like the planning board could come to us and say, we're gonna put 1 million people down in the south end of town, and we could do anything about it, We can really only do what we can do, given the speed with which you can move.
Yeah, I hear you. I do think it's a little bit of a closed loop control kind of thing that should be going on. So, and this is not about pleasing this board, right, or pleasing any egos here. This is about, we need to know what the town is planning so we can put those plans in motion that take maybe 15 years.
Well,
right?
especially anything large, yeah, I would agree with you
Right.
there.
So,
Well, there must have been some of that discussion done with the projections that Underwood did. Like they know that we need, what is it, we're shooting for an extra 500,000 gallons or something by 2030 or no?
Right, 20 years out. Yeah, and I don't think we've ever had any formal discussions to the Wolf's point about what they see as growth needs over the next 10 or 20 years of growth windows. We usually look at the master plan and sort of try to align with what they're thinking is. But to Ron's point, this falls under RSA 647, and I think there is a step up, Wolf, to your point, and we probably should at least share projections and ask that our projections that we're planning for are consistent with what they think, or do they know anything that's coming down the pike that we need to be aware of? So I think that's a good step, but really the meeting they are asking for falls under RSA 647:6, which is listed down here. They have to take an action on each one of the line items, each one of the capital plans in the bottom right-hand corner, assign a category to it, I guess. Is it necessary? Is it desirable? Is it premature? Those kinds of things. Those are the meetings we've been to.
but isn't this only true when the waterworks are part of the town? And not a separate district?
I don't know. We just sort of have been doing it all along. So I don't know if it's.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to fight it, don't get me wrong. I have no problem cooperating with other boards. I'm just saying, to me, from a pure logic standpoint, I think it is very important that we know what plans the town has as far as growth, right? And
Yeah,
they probably
that's
have better insight into that than we do, right?
Yeah, because if we're planning for 500,000 and they say, hell, you forgot, you
Right.
didn't know about this, then we're kind of caught.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we can do that as part of this meeting for sure. I mean, we should be doing that and presenting, this is what we're planning for. We need your feedback.
Mhm.
And I think maybe one thing I think we should mention is that irrigation is really the driving factor in all of this.
Exactly.
And I don't think that is even discussed or anything as far as the planning board is concerned in their projections. They're just looking at build out, but that's important if I think we need to factor in irrigation in our future projected demands. And I don't know if there's anything the planning board can do to make some of the developers either have to provide their own irrigation or at least to identify the irrigation. And that's something we're asking for anyways. But the only other thing I wanted to say too is it's important for MVD to know if there's any town projects like repaving, that type of thing, because obviously we want to make sure if we're doing any water line work in the forecast that we're not, that the roads don't get paved right before we're doing the water line extension. I think, Ron, you mentioned something that you try to keep in contact with the town as far as that paving schedule goes, and make sure that they're not doing something that's going to preclude us from, we don't want to dig up the newly paved road to put a water line in. So hopefully that kind of, two-way communication is going on with the town. I assume it is.
We do. We actually have a monthly meeting that Dave will usually attend that talks about the different projects in town. We do try to get a paving list ahead of time. So we know where the road's gonna be paved, just for the fact of just raising valves and that kind of stuff, valve boxes, straighten valve boxes, so, so we can get, actually even locate them so that they don't get paved over as well. So, yeah, we do try to get that from the town and know what's gonna be done for paving.
How far ahead do they typically project? Is it only a year or 2 or 3 as far as paving?
I want to say they have areas identified, and I think it depends on the funding that's available, and they'll fine tune that list as it gets closer to when they know what they have for monies available.
Right. So I think the further they can project out gives us an opportunity to make sure that it's compatible with any water line work that we're doing. And I think what's probably likely to happen is the town might have a projection out, a few years, and that's probably the most optimistic. And if anything, it usually slides out further, I guess. I don't know if that's true or not, but.
And we've noticed it kind of both ways. They actually, had a little bit more money, so they actually bumped some stuff up and in the past, or they've pushed stuff off too. So we've seen it go both ways.
Right. Ron, are you scheduled to go to the planning, to a future planning board meeting? Any?
Yes. Yeah, we're on the agenda for December 7th.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's something that you're gonna be able to go to. I've already talked to Keith as well, so Keith's available.
If you're available, Keith, I just think you probably have a better handle on all of this, the CIP stuff. So, I think I'm probably not, experienced enough with this particular CIP to really speak to it. And if you have a little bit more history involved, I think it would make more sense.
Yep, that's fine. Yep. No, I've probably been to half a dozen of them over the years with Ron. So.
Okay.
I remember them saying, they don't have any authority or say on the projects. They don't have any authority to say on the budget. All they really, and I get Wolf's point, and I'm going to take advantage of that to make sure that they're educated in what we're planning so that they can provide comment. But historically, they've just acted on, yep, we see it as necessary project. And I think, Ron, I can't think of any exceptions where they didn't identify any of your projects as necessary. So.
The only one that jumps to mind is the new office.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But we didn't say it was necessary either, so. I think we identified that as a want, kind of, but.
And as fast
Desirable.
as things are growing, that might change that attitude.
Yeah.
When was that date? I'm sorry.
December 7th.
7th.
D-Day. Pearl Harbor Day.
For Harbor Day, yeah.
A quick question on the, Dawn said earlier that we need to think about what leverage the planning board can maybe impose on developers and property owners, builders, to factor in irrigation, right? The system development charge, is that based on our estimate of household use only? What is that based on?
I'll give you the simplest explanation, but it's basically based on your assets, your net assets divided by your system capacity. So I don't know, 20 million divided by, it's 40 million, let's say, divided by, 4 MGD. You get $1 per gallon. That's essentially what the SDC is. So a residential unit uses 200 gallons a day, that's their charge. And again, I'm rounding numbers and going from memory, but a commercial user uses 2,000 gallons a day times that dollar per gallon. That's their SDC charge. But it's basically saying it's your assets, your dollars per gallon of your assets.
And I think we maybe need to think about that a little bit harder because for one, we're looking in the past, right? But we already know that we have cost protection in the future with all the cleanup work and the O&M costs and everything. And I recognize that's a different category of cost, but still maybe we need to think about that a little bit. The other thing is those 200 gallons a day, does that include irrigation or is it just household use?
I think that
It
was
would,
helpful.
it would include irrigation by default because we calculate all your residential demands and divide them by 365 to come up with that number. And if those that are using irrigation they're in there. But it's an average. It's based on an annual average.
And that's what draws the number down, right? Because it's our peak demand that costs us an arm and a leg, right?
I mean,
It's
we
the peak
need,
demand, it's the peak that drives all our capacity calculations.
we need, half to 2/3 of our wells just to meet the peak day demand.
Right.
Not the average.
So
Yeah.
there's a hole there that keeps growing, right? As we add users, we're gonna keep that hole's getting deeper and deeper because we're always looking at the average demand, not at the peak.
Maybe for future development, maybe something, I don't know, at probably out of our scope, but maybe kind of maybe the town can kind of start suggesting to new development, have drought resistant landscapes or something like that, kind of like, where they don't have to maybe irrigate so much. Or something, like kind of like out west where they have higher drought conditions and stuff like that, but maybe it's something, I don't know, where they wouldn't have to irrigate so much, for new development.
Right.
I'm almost thinking that there's two action items coming from that. For one, I think we need to have a look at that system development charge.
Well,
And-
I'm looking at the action items now. We've got number 41, which is review process of water allocation requests from the planning board and MVD's ability to monitor. I don't know if that's exactly what we're talking about now.
Not
But,
quite, no, I don't think so.
Right.
It's part of it, but I don't think it,
Can we capture that? I mean, that would be part of the rate model, correct?
Well, I think if you want to capture that as an action item, what Wolf is talking about is more of the cost of service. So yes, the SDC industry standard is to charge it based on the averages. But what you're charging is dealt with through the cost of service study. So if we cost of service evaluation, and right to your point, if it costs us X to run all our wells and put in a big pipe to serve this new development out there that needs to irrigate a 20-acre green space, then what is that cost of that service? And that's the charge they get. So let's capture it as we should consider if we're going to be starting to look at developments based on the true cost of service or stick to the SDC or both, because they are two different things. And you're right, they are two different things.
let me give you an extreme example. Let's assume somebody wants to build a golf course, brand new one, right? They're gonna water the heck out of that in summertime and gonna be seriously driving up the consumption. But they're only gonna do that for 3 or 4 months, but in those 3 or 4 months, they're gonna help driving the peak up like crazy. And that's what we have to develop our capacity for, right? Plan our capacity for. But they're only gonna be buying some, into the system at a very low cost, really, looking at all the non-consumption over the winter time, right? So they have a huge discrepancy between summer and winter, but they drive the cost up, disproportionately for the overall system capacity, the filtration capacity. And I don't think we have that covered at all.
No, and let's put that in consider looking at cost, to your point, the true cost of service for irrigation on these developments.
So I'm almost thinking there should be like a escalation factor depending
Right.
on what the peak day demand for a particular project is versus its average day demand. Because there's some users with little to no landscaping that their peak day demand is very close to their average annual demand. And then there's some other intensive users that have a lot of landscape irrigation where, you know, your peak day demand might be double, triple what your average day demand. So kind of wondering if there's a ratio that we can look at and have every applicant estimate their irrigation demand and you know, if their peak day demand is significantly higher than their average day demand, there should be a surcharge that they're paying, because like we're saying is we've got wells that we wouldn't need if people didn't irrigate. We wouldn't need all the wells that we have right now already. I mean, we're running, you know, we've run, what is it? Couple of years ago on just wells 4 and 5. And, you know, we've had wells shut off that in the middle of the winter that we don't need. So obviously there's a big change in the irrigation demand.
Oh, I like it. I
that's
think
gonna
it's,
capture it.
I think it's great. And I think we should capture it in your action items. And I'm going to tweak the capital plan here to identify that as a project too, to look at the true cost of service and the cost of irrigation.
Good.
I like it. You're right.
I think it's something we've been kind of dancing around for a while now, and I think we need to try to quantify it.
I like it.
Would it be cost prohibitive to have a separate irrigation meter at some of these places
No, not necessarily, because, you know,
with a
but
higher rate?
Well,
Yeah.
they probably, do they get a credit back on their sewer discharge by having an irrigation meter? If they're,
if the town does it, but you guys are on ad valorem. I don't think they use meters, right? Moran, I think we,
I believe, well, residential sewer customers are flat rate. In commercial, so that would be the benefit of the meter on the commercial. And some do. I always, you know, we'll sell you a meter if you need it. We're not reading it. That's between them and wastewater I mean, we read it as far as billing, but we're not supplying that information to wastewater. We're not reading it specifically for them. It's for billing purposes only.
Or maybe this is something for not to draw out this meeting, you know, for the next work session, right?
there's two things we're talking about here, because Wolf, I think you were talking about the entrance fee to get in, not just
Right.
charge on averages. And
Right.
then we're also talking about the meter charges, and we are looking at that tiered rate. So we're beginning to start establishing a system for higher rates of irrigation. But they are two different, you know, they're definitely two different things. But yeah, I agree. I think we should tackle this. It's a good one, and it's because it is what's driving your demand, your costs.
right. All right, so was that an extra action item that we are adding to this?
I'd say so.
Does Amanda, you need any clarification on that?
Yes, please. And do you want it added to the one that you had mentioned, Don, or do you want this to be a separate action item? You had mentioned number 41.
Yeah, which reads as review process of water allocation requests from the planning board and MVD's ability to monitor.
I think it's separate. Those are all separate action items.
All right. So you want to try to give a quick few words so Amanda has a chance to actually put that as the next action item in the list?
Sure. Review system development charge, calculation metrics to
Include peak use?
include escalation due to irrigation.
Put the words cost of service in there too, if you don't mind, just because that's what it. a
So
lot of what
cost of
it'll-
service, review cost of service for.
I think everything he said, but just put parentheses, i.e. cost of service, because that's really what we're talking about. This is,
Yeah.
Good.
And then the other one was a review option to add separate irrigation meters and impact on
For residential,
for residential, right?
that
Well, I was thinking you would start somewhere and you would start with your largest users, which I didn't necessarily think would be residential. That's why I asked if it was going to be cost prohibitive.
I
Because
think-
I imagine-
I think that would be.
Okay.
ju- I'm just gonna, off the shoot from the hip here, I want to say a cost of a meter now is right in the range of $250 for a meter.
Well, I'm talking about new developments. No, we could grandfather in existing developments, but new developments could very much see that provision. Where it really doesn't cost us an extra, except for 3 feet of,
So we supply them with a meter with the entrance fee.
Mhm.
So I guess we could do more, we could actually bill them possibly for any, if you, on the condition of irrigation, you need to purchase an irrigation meter from us. Something like that, if we, yeah.
yeah, and basically, if you don't
A
have,
rate for that? That against the rules.
I guess that opens up another whole conversation of how to, so right now, we're charging over a certain cubic foot, we're charging a different rate. So does that, I don't know how we would do that.
3,000.
Yeah,
well, that would probably then not apply to anybody that has a separate meter, right? We would have to figure that out, what makes sense, but
track it, but yeah.
I think it would require a little bit of rate redesign or pivoting a little bit to do it. Because what you're trying to do is establish a higher rate for true irrigation, right? And what we did was the conservation rates that applied to whether it's irrigation or just wasteful use of water, didn't matter what it was. We just said, if you're using more than the typical, we're going to charge you. But so I think to go to irrigation rates or meters, we would want to make sure our rate design matches up with that. So I think that would just be part of the work into looking into it.
I'll just try to look into a way that would, discourage over irrigation and, funds what we have to build infrastructure wise because of it. But, I forgot about the what Keith was just talking about, the actual just based on volume could work just as well.
well, we did that last year.
Okay,
Yeah,
that'll work.
we were,
It's implemented right now, so. I think,
Yeah, it's just starting. We'll know soon.
Is it
Right.
308, I think, for a rate
Oh, it's just starting?
over 300 cubic feet,
but July, it started in July.
Why, yeah. I don't think we have enough data yet to know.
3,000 cubic feet?
You get any complaints
Not yet.
about high water bills from people that were on that situation?
Not that I'm aware of, I don't know.
It started July 1st.
Well, you didn't, I did on Facebook.
We handle them all.
Yeah, maybe we give it a little time to see what it looks like.
I should charge another $5 a
Jump into something else.
I got a suspicion that it might not hit with, what do we get, about 14 something inches of rain in July, so.
Yeah, that's
That is
true.
true, that is true.
Maybe we see how it goes next summer and then, keep that in the back pocket.
Just keep on doing your rain dance.
Yeah, sounds like we're gonna need it next summer. All right, I think that covers a good part of that discussion. So
Dawn, is it still an action item to have a work session for the corrosion control? I think that was something you still wanted to do,
it's something we wanted to do.
which deals with Wolf's earlier question about the chemical feeds too.
I don't see it on the action items here. But yeah, we should, I guess we should probably make it one, because I know we've been
Definitely.
we've been kicking this thing around for a few months, and I just know everyone's so busy with everything going on that we just hadn't had a chance to pull it together and sit down and have a meeting on this. So yeah, let's make that an action item.
Do you guys have a preference on when we want to target it? You want to wait till the holidays are over, or
Yes.
Yeah,
Please.
yeah, that's fine.
so maybe at February or something, we can just pin something down, and if February's good, I'll set it up and then we'll just have a target date.
February, we have budget season, so
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Oh,
that's the public hearing and
okay.
budget and public hearing.
almost would have to be in March or later, but that's quite a way out, right? So,
Yeah, that's the problem. There's just so much other stuff always going on. It's hard to fit things in.
With the action item, Wolf had asked about the injection points. Could we put that in parentheses there too?
The what
Yeah.
points?
They'll
Yeah.
just kind of be a tickler system for us.
Corrosion control evaluation, parentheses, remote chlorination stations or something.
Remote.
Yeah.
Well, if we don't, I mean, even if it's April, I know it sounds far, but it's gonna be here before you know it. I mean, we're ready to do it anytime you want. But if I schedule it, at least we have a target date. We can always move it up.
And
Forgive
this-
my ignorance, but is the remote chlorination station the same as a chemical feed?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And none of that corrosion control or remote chlorination, that really doesn't necessarily affect any ongoing projects that we have, right? These would all be new projects, completely new. The only
Right.
thing it would do is hopefully end up allowing us to turn down the amount of chlorine that we inject at the well sites, perhaps.
Right, and I don't, just knowing and trying to remember what the recommendations were, there was no like pressing thing that we had come up with. And especially as Peter noted, we're waiting to get everything back online too. So anything we do in the meantime would be interim, as Ron pointed out. So the idea of waiting in April, I don't think is gonna hurt you.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to.
yeah, and you're right. Until 7 and 8 are back online, it doesn't make any sense at all. So you're probably right. So April shouldn't hurt.
I'll set something up with Ron and Jill, and at least it'll be in our calendars.
Yeah, the other thing to keep in mind is that whole remote chlorination thing has been somewhat in flux because first of all, it was wells 4 and 5 were offline, for a number of years, and then those came back online. So it almost makes sense to want to have all of our permanent well treatment plants online and then kind of do a chlorination sampling through the distribution system and see how it varies with all of our permanent wells once they're all treated. And I know that's kicking the can even further down the road, but we can at least go over the report and the recommendations, I think, before that, So
That's the key.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be the key of what we're doing there, is at least to get everybody up to the speed on what we came up with. And then we can talk about next steps.
Yeah.
I penciled it in for the 19th, Jill and Ron. I'll throw that out there, and if it works, we can get everybody to put it in their calendar. April 19th, 2022. I was looking at it, tax day is the 15th, right? So I figured you want to do it after that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a Tuesday. But it also probably falls on the day after your Monday meeting. So I don't know what works for you guys, but
That would be rough. I wouldn't want that.
21st is a Thursday. How about I try that?
I
Sure.
prefer not the same week, to be honest, as a regular meeting.
28th is the following Thursday.
If you guys are buying me a birthday bash present. And Dawn.
Do you guys prefer a Thursday or a Tuesday? Just doesn't matter.
Probably mad. It probably depends on the week, what's going on that week,
All right, I'll tell you what, I'll just put it out for like the week after on a Tuesday or Thursday, because as it approaches, we're probably going to move it a little bit. So let's just get it on there and it'll be on our radar, and that way it'll happen. More likely to happen.
Yeah.
So you say the 26th or 28th?
Why don't we do it the 26th and pencil it in for everybody on the 26th. I'll put it out here on my calendar. And as the date approaches, if we have to shift it a day or a week, that's not a big deal.
And this is gonna be on the action item, so we'll be able to see this coming a month ahead and really. pin down
Exactly.
the Schedule, so that's a good reason to put it on the action items list.
And would this be a 5 o'clock type thing? Or,
Yeah, I think so. What do you guys, I probably prefer that, I think.
It has to be for Ken, right? It
No.
has to be 5 o'clock or after for you.
Well, depending when it's April, right? We're talking about. That's
Maybe
kind of far away. I mean, I could do 4:30, 4 o'clock, depending on, get closer, so.
I mean, for planning ahead, that's fine.
Exactly. So, so,
Did you say 4 or 4:30?
well, it's in April, so, I mean, when we get closer to it, we can sit down on time, but just at least get a date and then,
sounds good.
yeah.
All right, so that should be a wrap on that agenda item.
Good.
I believe. Good.
All right. Any other questions of me?
Actually, yeah, maybe, and I wanted to bring that up during old business, but since you're still here, because you're probably involved in that, during one of the Pennachuck meetings, we discussed something and it never made it on the to-do list, and that was, I really would like to have a clear-cut understanding of compliance, non-compliance, how quickly can we get back compliant with PFAS.
You referring to like the, how many positive and.
Correct.
Testing.
Correct. So the rule is, and basically, Don Ware and, they were throwing all these statements out there. And I have nothing to go by if that's true or not. I'm not saying that they're not truthful, but I have nothing that comes from.
I have all that. I mean, that's what,
But we didn't have a clear answer that day when we asked about it. So example, so the rule is if 4 consecutive quarters averages, right, is above the limit, we're non-compliant. When are we dropping back out of it?
It's running average, Wolf, so.
It is,
goes-
right.
So whenever that average goes below, it's gonna depend on how low it is. So now it should be like 0, right? Well, whatever Pennachuck's is plus 0.
Which, right, so it's a running compliance. But we didn't, that day, there wasn't a lot of security about some of those statements. And when we had said to go back to DES and getting very clear guidance from them,
I can do that.
how do we deal with that? And really an official statement, because we think it is a running
Yeah,
statement,
it's
right?
documented rules.
Right, but the only statement that we really have right now is there was a House bill, right, that issued that cemented the state MCL. So there's a House bill, but that House bill was not very specific as far as the actual regulation, right? It was throwing out MCLs and numbers and I'm not even sure if it was actually stating the 4 consecutive quarters. I think that came after the fact from DES, right? So I just don't have anything really solid in front of me that says, what's that?
I'll get my hands on it, because there's a violation letter that says why, and then I didn't even think to contact DES because they were involved with all this.
Right.
So,
I guess my point is I think we're somewhat clear why we are now or why we have been in violation. But the way out of the violation has not been nowhere near as clear, in my opinion.
Well, I understand that for each violation, we have to set out a public notice. As soon as we're in compliance, we don't have to do that public notice.
Right, but
But I don't know if there's anything that comes from DES that says, we understand that you're now in compliance.
that's one example, right? Are we getting notified, or again, what is the metric that brings us, that lets us know we're back in compliance, right?
Well, then
So-
are we gonna be in violation during this time that we're buying water from Pennachuck? Because a lot of times they say you have to physically disconnect the well, right?
We just gotta, don't want to call it a waiver on
Yeah.
monitoring, so we don't have to do any monitoring for the time period that we're on,
So you've been in contact with them, that's good.
as far as that, yes.
The
Excellent.
difference is kind of referring to what John saying, like Hudson was told to we did it voluntary.
Hudson didn't have an alternative source.
Right.
Yeah, so we're a little bit different situation where we did it voluntary.
We wouldn't have had to because we had a plan in place to remedy for quite some time. I guess my point is, for example, when we talked about the example, so say, for example, we need to turn on, 2 and 3, right? Because we have a spike in the pool. Everybody's filling up the pool in May, not March. Everybody's filling up the pool, we have a spike. So now we turn on 2 and 3, right? So but we're not, for example, possibly measuring that day. Right? We're not taking samples that day. How does that play into the average? How does that play into the regulation? Are we okay to do that? Are we not okay to do that?
We are. I think we need to give them a call and let them know that we're, if I'm remembering
emergency
correctly, it's
services.
emergency use and we're.
It's right in the contract too.
Yeah.
Right, but how does it affect the whole, rolling average now? Is it gonna suck us back down, right? Drop us back down because now we're providing, even just for maybe a week, that water that is contaminated to a certain extent? Or does it not factor in at all because it's
Right.
luckily not within our sample schedule, right?
Yeah.
None
Is
of
it
that is
only-
clear to me at all, right? And it bothers me that it's not clear to me because it makes us not in control of the situation, right?
I guess the question is, does it only matter to the running for quarterly samples? Is it just when we take the sample in that particular month?
Correct.
Or quarter? And it's quarterly samples, right? So for 2 of the 3 months, if we have wells on that are above the MCL, and then the 3rd month is when we take the sample, those wells are off and everything's below the 12 PFOA, what happens for the prior 2 months?
Right.
I think we
I don't
just need to ask that to DES,
Right, and it's not about fudging this either, right? It's not
Right.
that we're saying we're just gonna buy water from Pennychuck when we're taking samples and all the other time we're keep pumping bad water out there, right? I mean, that's not the idea, but I think we need to understand the realities better.
My understanding was if for a short term, it wasn't going to affect our sampling.
We'll get it
Because we have a
right.
waiver, but yeah, we'll follow up on that.
So again, I don't want to question your knowledge either, and I appreciate you guys being informed about, within what you have been provided, but I just don't think that comprehensively, at least I personally feel comfortable with what I know. That's all I'm saying.
Is there when it comes to emergency use, is there a set amount of time? Say, for instance, if emergency use, it's, do you have only 48 hours or 72 hours be allowed to use that water? Or you can.
No, it just has to be, the emergency has to be defined to New Hampshire DES. So if there's a fire or emergency or irrigation would not be considered an emergency.
Right.
We'd go backwards and start putting on the restrictions.
I guess the emergency would be that we're losing water probably at a rate that we can't handle, so we need to bring up the well, but then we would have to initiate the water restrictions or something.
Makes sense.
So we will make that an action item? Is that what your point was?
Yeah,
I
please.
think so.
Yeah, I was just looking at the notice. The rule is ENVDW 712.
Okay,
That's where the information is.
okay.
All right, so how would we want to word that action item? Just clarity on the PFAS violation, running average versus emergency usage of wells or something. I don't know how to word it, but
Yeah. And how it ties into the test, into the sampling schedule, for example, too, right?
yeah. It sounds like Ron and Jill might have already discussed some of that. Maybe if we can just contact Don Ware, I believe, mentioned Brandon Kernan's name at DES.
Yep.
So it might be, maybe if you want to give him a call, it sounded, I don't, for Don, it sounded like he had recommended Brandon to be the one that's probably could answer that. I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but.
No, Tricia Medora would be the one that does the sampling schedules and such.
Okay. And maybe if there's, I don't know if the DES came out with any directive on that, any guideline on how to interpret that. It sounds like they might not have, but it'd be good to have something in writing so that we know exactly, you know, how short is a short-term measure, you know? All right, any other questions, comments on that, or we'll move on to the minutes? All right, looks like everybody's good to go.
Yep.
All right. If you don't need me, then I'll sign off. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Keith.
Keith.
Okay, bye, guys.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Peter.
Yeah.
All right, good. So let's move on. Next agenda item is approval of minutes. We'll just take them in order as they were in the package, which was the first one is the October 14th meeting minutes. That's the special meeting. And let's see, I think everybody was present there at that meeting. So I don't have any corrections or anything to offer there.
I have a couple. So page 3, line 45 is actually covering what we just talked about, and I'm pretty sure that I asked for clarification at that time already. So I would like to have that added, please. This is about the, you know, the violation and the details of that violation and how to get back out of that violation, what the stipulations are.
What am I adding?
It's not up there, well, from like line 38, 39, something like that, 39, 40. 41,
41.
40 to 41. So do you want to clarify?
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I missed that. Okay, skip that one. You're right. Thank you. On page 4, line 13, Don Ware stated that when MVD has fully treated water, MVD's production costs will be substantially higher. I recall that's correct, but I also recall mentioning or adding that it's still going to be noticeably lower than Penny Chuck's anyway. Plus, Penny Chuck's at that time still has PFAS that is detectable. So I would like to have that added.
What? You're gonna have to start over. You lost me. What?
Don Ware stated, so line 13, right?
I get that.
Don Ware stated that when MVD has fully treated water, comma, MVD's production costs will be substantially higher. I added, but still lower, noticeably lower than Penny Chuck's today. And it will be PFAS free. Let's be positive. It will be PFAS non-detect. Now ours is going to be PFAS non-detect. Right?
Right.
When MVD has fully treated water, our water will be non-detect, PFAS non-detect. Penny Chuck's will not.
I thought we were talking about costs here. I didn't realize we were
I'm
talking.
talking about both.
Okay.
Okay, let me repeat. Don Ware stated that when MVD has fully treated water, comma, MVD's production costs will be substantially higher. That's a correct statement. But however, it will still be noticeably lower than Penny Chuck's production cost, even at the emergency rate, really. And it will be PFAS non-detect.
So that's what you're saying, that's what you stated at the meeting, and that's what you want that in the minutes.
That's what I recall at least, yeah.
Okay.
That's it for that.
All right, any other suggested edits, corrections, or anything from anybody?
Will we accept the minutes with the corrections?
Seconded.
Okay, that's the October 14th minutes. So that was a motion by John, second by Ken. We'll do roll call vote. John, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ken,
Aye,
Wolf,
in favor?
and myself in favor. So those minutes pass as amended 4-0-0. And the next set of minutes is for October 18th. That's the regular session. And looks like we were all present on that. So does anybody have any corrections or anything to
Yes.
offer on those?
Yes, please. And I would actually like to ask that you go back to the recording because I think there's quite a bit of things missing. On page 2, Mitchell Woods permit renewal, there was quite a discussion about continuing to maintain the permit and not doing anything with it. None of that is in here. None of that is in here at all. So I would like to suggest that we go back. And I'm pretty sure that at least Ken Ayers and I somewhat make a statement, and I think Don at one point even quoted it as well, that there really should be a strategy put forth to come to a decision whether or not we want to do anything with Mitchell Woods and do it rather sooner than later if we want to do anything with it, or that we drop the permit. So I think that needs to be reviewed in the recording.
I don't know if you need to go back to the recording on that. I mean, what you just said is basically captures what the discussion was, right? You want more detail than that, I guess?
Well, I just don't know what exactly has been said. I mean, if we want to mix this in here somehow, we can do that. I just don't know exactly where to be chronologically correct.
I know it was quite a discussion.
It was really quite a discussion, so.
Okay,
Back to the recording.
And more so, there's another one that I also think is completely missing. That's why I figured it would be a good idea to go back.
okay.
That is. On page 7, hang on, I think. Yes, page 7. And that one I really do ask that you go back to the recording because this is about the visit of EPA Administrator Mike Reagan and Congress representatives. There's an extensive discussion missing and a decision that was made that is not in here at all. The paragraph ends here. It was, Chairman Provencher stated that he likely would not be in favor of putting the burden on the staff to creating a policy. We ended that discussion with a completely different statement in my memory.
Yeah, it's true.
You recall that I pointed out that some third party could basically hijack any of those events and show up and present themselves what a great steward they are for the community, right? I brought the example that that Shell or like a gasoline, provider could show up and basically hijack an event and present themselves in the most beneficial form for themselves and the public, and we would be standing there looking like a wet dog, right? I mean, and then after I made that example, I'm pretty sure the board agreed that we really should be looking into a visitation policy. And it actually ended up being an action item on the to-do list. So there's a substantial amount of the discussion that is not in here that I would like to see.
You had mentioned you might be able to have, you might have some stuff
Correct.
from work that you.
Right.
As,
And I'm more than happy to spend some time on this, but I dearly miss that discussion in here.
So should we table these minutes
Yeah.
for review?
Yeah.
Ask a question. Did Dave get his integrated SCADA? Oh, the last page, Dave came in and asked for integrated SCADA on the interconnection.
we are looking into that. We haven't done it yet. We're gonna be doing basically a SCADA review upgrade at the end of the well 2 project we actually have parts and pieces that we've taken out of old stations, so we're in the process of communicating with our A&D Instruments to see what it would take to get this online.
Okay. I'm glad we're following up on it.
Yeah, we are.
So I have one more question, not so much an edit, page 9, line 46. Commissioner Lyons brought up Laureen Allen and that she expressed that she would be willing to sponsor a bill. I don't think Laureen Allen, as much as I'm right, there's something wrong there too.
Oh, yeah.
I love Laureen Allen. She's
No, that was Maureen Mooney.
right. So there's something
I didn't catch that.
that paragraph seems to have a couple of glitches like that.
Yeah, anywhere you see Lorraine Allen, it should be Maureen Mooney. It
Yeah.
kind of rhyme.
How did I miss that? Good catch.
Sorry, Lorraine, for demoting you, but you can't sponsor a bill at the State House.
No.
Okay, and I think I'm done with that.
All right, so I think somebody wants to, should make a motion to table these minutes. Or do we have to do a motion for that?
No, I don't think so. Wanted to approve.
We need to, I don't know if we
I
need
don't
to,
think we've ever made a motion to table it.
We need- no.
Don't need one, right?
No, I think it's fine if you
Yeah.
just.
All right.
No
so let's
motion.
ta- Okay. All right, so let's table that. The thing I would recommend is when those edits are made, probably run those over so Wolf may have a chance to look at them and make some red line edits in the Word file. That way, when it makes it to our next meeting's Board of Commissioners packet, hopefully we'll have a little bit more refinement and they can get approved at the next meeting. It always helps to have some eyes on them before it gets into the packet.
Yeah, the problem is I didn't have time to do that this time.
Right. So let's hope maybe next time that it's more refined, you'll be able to just take a look at those changes. Okay, so then the last minutes.
That's
Is
it.
that it?
That's
that was it.
That's it. Okay, good.
That's a long one.
Right. All right, so back on the agenda here, looks like we're in the action items, review of action items. And let's see if there's any of these that we can cross off. I think number 2, that's ongoing. I'm not sure when the next
That should be in your.
oh yeah, that
Board
was in the
packets.
packet, right? It's
Yep.
that's right. Okay. Number 13, disaster recovery policy. Is that still open?
Security policy. Wasn't that a little bit of the cybersecurity?
Yeah. I think we talked about that earlier today, right?
Yeah.
With Michelle.
So is that item complete then?
I wouldn't say complete, but it's ongoing, because John did have a question about the
Oh,
was
yeah,
it
good point.
application.
Yeah. All right, so let's leave that on. Number 23, results of additional PFAS sample points. Those were emailed today, is that correct?
Yeah, that should be. They should have those as well.
Right, and that's an ongoing thing too, so that's gonna stay on there, right?
Yep.
37, think about decision criteria for moving forward with alternative water sources. That, I'm almost thinking we should have a meeting on that at some point. I mean, I don't see any kind of progress on this happening without some kind of decisions being done. I guess we're just maybe thinking about it on our own, but
Weren't we waiting, Don, for the
cost of
cost of
study.
service
cost of
study?
service,
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then we were gonna put something together after that.
yeah, good point. That's a good point. I forgot about that. All right, so that stands. Any questions on that? We can move on to 39. The noise complaint at the Turkey Hill Booster Station. We talked about that last meeting too, right?
Yeah, let's leave that on there. We actually haven't had a chance to do any other work over there, so.
Okay,
Can we change that to Ron? Because I haven't had really anything to do with that. Ron's been dealing with it the whole time with the guys.
yeah, I was just looking at that too. That probably makes sense. So if
Oh, okay.
you want to change that.
I'm fine with leaving Jill on there.
At number 40, I think that's gonna stay on there. So 41, review process of water allocation request from the planning board. Again, I think that just stays on there. I'm not sure who specifically it's assigned to all of us, but I'm not sure if anybody is specifically following up on that. I think like it says in there, we're gonna talk about that at a future work session, maybe.
Yep.
Ongoing SALT committee meetings. I know that's something Jamie is involved with too. I don't know if that and number 44, if you guys have anything more.
No, we have another meeting set up with them at the end of November.
And that's where you're gonna ask them about if they would like to make public or publicize their efforts on their SALT mitigation.
Yeah.
Okay. Then gain an understanding of the number 45, gain an understanding permitted threshold of wells 4 and 5, seek approval from NHDES to exceed threshold. That wasn't assigned to anyone, so I don't think,
I can take that one as well.
okay. You want to take number 44 too, because that probably goes along with, or you or Jill, I think you guys are the ones that are dealing with fidelity and the SALT mitigation at this point, right?
Oh, Jill just raised her hand on 44. I'll take those both.
Oh, I already wrote her name down.
All right, and then 46, address the future public event policy. And I know that's going to be ongoing. So maybe at this point, if you want to read off the several other ones that we've added, Amanda, does that sound reasonable?
Yep. So review the SDC calculation metrics to include, but then you spoke too fast. I have it in the recording, but I put ... there. And in parentheses, it will say i.e. cost of service. The next one after that would be to review the option to add separate irrigation meters. Then the following one would be a work session for April 26th to address corrosion control and chemical feed. And then the next one would be clarity on the PFAS violation and the running average versus emergency usage and how it ties into the sampling schedule.
Yep, sounds good. Anything anybody remembers that we wanted to add that's not in there? I can't think of anything. Okay.
Do you want these assigned to anyone in particular?
Oh, yeah.
So did we decide to table the irrigation meter idea to kind of see how the tiered structure works first? We're gonna have this action item here that we talk about every month for the next 12 months until we have some history on this. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Can we just make the last line of the action item skip so we don't talk about it every month?
Yeah, I can put in there that you want to address it at a certain month or after a certain date.
Yeah, I would think after next July, we'll start to understand a little bit how that may or may not, if complaints start coming in, hey, my water bill's through the roof. Yeah, because you're irrigating all over the place, like those kind of interactions could help us understand if that's working or not.
Yep.
We could maybe add a column here that says revisit. Just so we table it for a certain while, certain items.
Yeah, that'd work.
And maybe even the date mark complete those that are ongoing, mark them ongoing.
Okay.
And then we can maybe focus on those that aren't.
Okay. And I know in our packets, we have this Underwood Engineering Service requests tracking and the same thing for Emery and Garrett. I don't know if anybody has any questions on those or anything, but I know that's part of Ron's action item to keep track of all those. So that's what he's doing there. And if anyone has any questions on those, maybe we can bring those up, or if not, we can move on.
I'm good.
Okay. All right, so I can get my cursor back here. Let's move on to looks like the next item is old business, and the source water protection grant is on the agenda.
Yeah, so I just wanted to update you. Jamie asked me to let you know that we did submit to DES the grant request on November 1st. That was the deadline. He'd gone out and got some quotes and such, and judging by Ron's meeting with Kyle Fox from DPW and the wellhead protection areas and kind of figuring out how many each would need. We actually put a bid in out there for 100 of the source water protection area signs. So the lowest bid that Jamie got was $43,094. So the grant amount, he put the spin on it, because for 25, you get $25,000 grant or a $30,000 grant. The $30,000 grant would have to have some sort of climate change impact. And so his way of approaching it is that by reducing the salt in the area, it's also going to help the climate, and the climate change itself has caused more de-icing agents needing to be used. So just this is just letting you know that it was submitted. The total project cost is $45,000 with us, $15,000 skin in the game. So once we get approved or denied, we'll bring it back to the board to decide if you want to accept it. And then we have to have a public hearing.
Does that include the installation of the signs or just the material?
Installation as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
That's it.
Is there any
Yeah.
permits we need to get for those signs, or
DPW is on board with us.
it is
Yeah, they're gonna utilize
public land?
the sign as well to put up their signage, if, you know, underneath or however it works out.
But underneath ours, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and I think the thing I'd like to see is, and I was looking at the last meeting. There's a map I think Ron and Kyle are working on about where the signs are going and what they're gonna, what different signs are gonna be posted. So I'd like to take a closer look at that and just have everybody take a peek and make sure they agree with all that too. So maybe
They're
that would be a.
Matching signs to what we have now.
Say that again?
They're matching signs to what we have now that are out there. We didn't want to do different signs in different areas, so it's the same. Well,
The little blue ones with the white writing.
yep.
Yeah, those
Yeah,
are cool.
They're pretty good
I
size.
dig it.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
But
they might, they're
some
fat.
say limited salt use, some say reduced salt area, some say no salt. I mean, I don't know.
I said watershed protection area.
Town signs, the ones that we hired are just saying,
Well,
entering a wellhead protection area.
Yeah.
Whatever the town puts up there for limited salt or no salt, we don't have control over.
Well, in my opinion, that was the entire intent of this, is to say where salt is applied and where it's not. And
yeah, well, I am gonna work with Kyle on that. So I don't know if they're all gonna have.
quite
I
often,
don't know if the whole area will be.
It depends on if it's commercial too. I mean,
Yeah, I gotta talk with Kyle more on that. I don't know what his envision is, but I would agree, it should be limited salt in those areas. So there should be some sort of a sign underneath it that, you know,
right.
no salt or limited salt use or something to that effect.
I mean, I would prefer to have just the sign say limited salt or no salt or whatever. That's more important to me than wellhead protection area. Everyone's gonna go, oh, wellhead protection area. What does that mean? You know, whereas if people see the trucks driving, blowing salt all over the road with a no salt area, they're gonna pick up the phone and take pictures and say, hey, what's going on? Why is there salt in a no salt area? If they see a wellhead protection area sign, they're not gonna know if it's no salt, reduced salt, or what's, you know. So to me, this is kind of what I've been pushing for all along, is to know, and I still don't understand what's the difference between reduced salt, no salt, unrestricted salt, begin salt, end salt. There's all kinds of signs out there, and none of them, a lot of them don't make sense to me. So that's kind of why I want to see a plan and what the signs are going to say, and understand where are we putting salt, where are we allowed to put salt down, and where are they not allowed to put salt down, because that's the most important part of this whole thing, is to get those signs up. If you ask me, just saying we're in an aquifer protection area, that doesn't tell anybody what you need to do about it, you know?
Yeah, my understanding is that it's a limited salt within the wellhead protection area. But if it's a area that we do not, if there's private wells
Right.
on a road, that would be the no salt, because they more of a chance to contaminate the private wells. I mean, they're contaminating our wells as well, but
Well, yeah, and they're affecting 28,000 people, not one house.
yeah,
So, you know, it's gotta be before I'm voting on anything, I want to make sure we're spending the money and putting the right signs in the right places that say the right things. I'll just leave it at that. So with that being said, anybody have any other comments on any other old business, or if not, then we can move on to new business. Seeing no new business, superintendent report.
Yeah, I just have one thing. So I got an email from Dan Tinkham, and they've booked the drill rig for the week before Christmas for 69 Wilson Hill Road. So I just got to get in touch with the homeowner and let them know that they're going to be out there at that time. But so they're starting out that way. Yes.
Good. All right. Anything else?
Quick
Mm,
comment from me, all those water main breaks that we had talked about earlier, they were all construction related,
A lot
right?
of them were construction related, so. Ones that, so we should be billing for some of them. Some of them we can't, they were mismarked on our part, so it's. Not much we can do about it, but
But there was none that was due to corrosion or?
No.
Okay,
it was all some sort of a strike. Typically, I believe it's all been, well, most of them were the underground piercing tools went through either a service or poked the side of the main. The one up on Woodbury Street was, they were digging under the main. Everything was fine up until they compacted underneath it and they put their big roller on top of it and broke. So
Okay.
That one we can bill for.
okay. Thank you.
Some of the others we can as well. Like I said, I don't know which ones were mismarked.
Yeah, my main concern is this, people hear water main break and the first thing they say is that our water lines are fragile and, you know, corroding and everything. And I want to be able to answer to that.
Yep.
That's not true. Okay, thank you.
All right. Guess we're moving on to questions from the press and public. I don't know if there's anybody on the waiting room or anything.
We've got one person listening in.
All right.
Question?
Did you click that allowed to talk? Or- There you go. Is there any questions from participant Brooke? There was a no?
I think so.
Okay. All right. So the next regular Board of Commissioners meeting is December 20th. And with that, there's no other closing comments. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion by Wolf, second by Ken. Do a roll call. Wolf, how do you vote?
In favor?
Ken,
In favor.
John,
Hi for me.
and myself in favor too. I just want to thank you guys for being present in the room for the official quorum. And in my absence down here in sunny, kind of warm South Carolina. But I will be back for the next meeting for sure, and we'll see you then.
All right.
Enjoy
All
the
right,
beach.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.